opening night at the ballpark.
That's true.
I don't remember. That's right.
Billing.
Oh, yeah?
Right, he was a big guy.
What's your degree? Construction management. So. Three co-ops.
I just can't watch.
Heard about this scarcity of.
We got off.
You gotta take this before you take that.
Right.
Hey, Colin.
Taking spring and summer off because
John?
Yeah.
Really?
You ready to go? Okay. We're ready to go? Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the League of Northampton Airport Authority. Which county? I do Finance Committee. Here we go. Finance Committee to order. I had the exec committee up, so. Hey, Tom.
No problem.
Okay, first, Sylvia, could you call the roll, please?
John Hayes.
Here.
Paul Anthony.
Here.
Ann Baum. Robert Brooks. Ricky Gower.
Here.
Kevin Lott.
Here.
And Mike Sarshik.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Did I hear two here's, or do we just have Kevin on the screen?
I think it was
Is that
just
Kevin
Kevin.
twice? Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay, we'll go into the action items. First is approval of the meeting minutes of the February 24, 2025 meeting. They were circulated via notice agenda. Entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mike, second by Frank. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, I can't do it.
Can't
And
do
I
it.
think I'm not. I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll give Ricky
Somebody
the
online, yeah.
second.
You do have Bob Brooks is on.
So Mike and Ricky?
Yep.
Got it.
Okay, and Bobby Brooks just joined.
Okay.
So we got him as well. Okay, next is acceptance of the financial statements. Todd, you're up.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Before I start, I do want to thank Frank, John, and Glenn for meeting with our auditors today. It's just part of the standard protocol, so I appreciate you doing that. So one thing is knocked out for us as part of our. All right, I'm going to start off with traffic, as we always do. You can see that pretty good month of February as far as traffic is concerned. You can see pretty much everybody's up, Allegiant, and the Legacies and the Charters up about 8%. You can kind of see the breakdown, a lot of that coming from the bus. It was the best since 2004. 2004 is kind of a number. It's, you know, it's, as far as the last time we were at a mill. It's as far as the last time we were at a mill on aircraft traffic was 2004. So that's a really a huge benchmark for us. Then breaking down a little bit, wanted to break down a little bit of the legacy traffic and what makes up kind of that 8%. And you can kind of see, you know, what happens when you're kind of between two major hubs. And we've talked about kind of the struggles with keeping some of the legacy stuff, and most of our group has come from Allegiant. But you can see our charters are up since 2019. Our bus is up, and United Aircraft again, and that's basically because of the Chicago flight coming back. Delta's down because we still haven't brought back to Detroit. But you can see what's going on the American. A lot of that traffic that we used to have by aircraft is now by bus. Then when you go into, you know, comparing us to 2019, because again, it's hard to kind of maintain these things every year, year over year, just to give us kind of a look back. But you can see where we were since 2019, our throughput going to the checkpoint, but up over 32%, seats up 24%, pretty much second in line behind White Plains, which has Breeze service there. And you can see what's going on with our peers. Still since 2019, the average is well below 10%. Then when you kind of break us down and compare us to all airports, again, our seats are outpacing, and this is compared to last year, just so we're following this, but for the same period last year, our seats are up almost 13%. Excuse me, our seats are up almost 13% compared to 9% for all airports. And again, we're pretty much neck and neck as far as throughput. And again, our throughput would not include United, which doesn't go to the checkpoint. Then again, if you just do it from last year to this year, that time period, you can see that their numbers aren't quite as robust, but still pretty good. We're still ahead of the peer average as far as throughput and seats. But again, we're kind of middle of the pack. Either you're doing pretty good, 10% or above, or you're kind of struggling down here. Down at the bottom there, you can see Atlantic City struggling, and they don't have they don't have Spirit anymore. The crew base left there, so that crew base left there. And Trenton, one of the concerns, we always talk about our partnership with Allegiant, the best of this low-cost carrier. They're partnering with Frontier, and that's not the greatest. We had Frontier for a while. They got our incentives, and then they packed up and left. Breaking down the month of February, we had a good month. Again, Connie and her team from de-icing really led that charge. We had a net de-icing of 252. That's revenue minus expenses, 252 positive. Half of the net income for the month came from de-icing. You can see we took the CARES out of there. That's our last CARES draw, so there's no more CARES. I'll wave bye-bye to it. It's not coming back. But again, it's a positive month. We had a really bad month. When I talk about snow a little bit, but if you look at year to date, we're up. Again, pretty good. We expected kind of a deficit without CARES. A lot of that led by the de-icing, almost 400K of net de-icing after expenses. So that's a pretty robust number. And that's over and above the favorability we already had in there for de-icing. We had a lot of frost. So even though we had a lot of expenses related to snow, we had a lot of frost, which helped us out on the revenue side. And then Frank's favorite chart, we're at 14 now, 14 consecutive months of net income for each and every month without CARES and without miscellaneous income. This means each month by itself is kind of holding water, which is a good thing. And something we feel good about, especially since I mentioned earlier, no more CARES. So if we can't survive without CARES, this tells us we can. And then kind of breaking down the cost centers, you kind of see what's going on there. CARES obviously at the top there, last draw, all of that for this year. Parking and revenue, parking and roadways, and just kind of breaking down the top. Down at the bottom, as I always mention, is kind of related to the subsidies that we do on airfield and terminal to keep our costs competitive. You can kind of see that even with our settlement stuff that we started working on, finishing up with the settlement for the airlines for 2024, because the next time we see the airlines after this year's settlement will be for the 2026 budget, and there won't be any CARES in there. So all that's kind of preparing them for life without CARES, not just us, but everybody else. And then breaking down the biggest variances, we took all the CARES, some of the 400 and some thousand we originally had budgeted in, I believe it was it May, thanks for saying. Net de-icing, you can see that that's the big number, 390 over and above what we had budgeted, so that's good stuff. Employee benefits, even though our cost per employee is up, because it's a lot of overtime, it's not necessarily hitting the benefits because we still have a lower head count than anticipated. That interest and some of the other things. And then breaking down, like I said here, we've already spent 95% of what we had budgeted in January and February. That's how we got hit in January and February. We had 517 for the year, and we spent 489 in January and February. And again, we got that de-icing, which kind of helped us out a lot of this, but it is what it is. Nothing we can do about it.
Is there anything in March?
I don't think there was anything in March.
Don't say that.
Yeah, please. Don't jinx us. But again, you can kind of see. I mean, last year, and we do kind of deal with our ebbs and flows. But last year, if you remember, last year was pretty bad too, as far as January and February, and we survived. And we got 90% of our total was in January and February last year. So we're not sure what that total is for the year, because obviously we could have snow later in the year as well. And then breaking down, kind of comparing it to budget, you can see kind of our personnel costs, and that includes the benefits and wages. Wages and salaries are actually up 2% because of the premium cost. A lot of it associated with our snow. It's just the way it is. And then benefit costs are kind of bringing their costs down. Still up 4% from last year. Non-personnel still up 5%, but again, not as far out as we had in our budget. And breaking down the counts, again, you can see our count is a little less than what we had as far as FTEs, but our full-time is down, and that's where you're saving some on the benefits. But the actual hours are a lot closer to budget than even though we have less full-time employees than we had in our budget. Then breaking it down by department, just the ebbs and flows of how things go during the winter, and turnover just like everybody else. Then breaking down our cash, that number there we have not changed, just changed that number. 11 will change. We do have the final number we submitted, which is about 150,000, not 500,000, so it's 150, 149 inch, but around that number. So that'll show up in next month's cash flow. Breaking down the changes, you can kind of see what's going on there. And then down there, 32 and 33, just a reminder, that is after our 180-day reserves. We kind of break down what makes up the 180-day, which we said we want to have at all times, but that's after the 180. So this gets a little confusing. I know you kind of give me the stink eye there, Paul. It's just after the 180. So if you go up there, we had 33 million in cash.
It's only my first time.
I get multiple stink eyes. Is that what you're telling me? Oh, okay. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. But really, for the new folks, it's 33 million at the top on line 23, and then we break down some of these reserves there. That 24 is money we can spend, but it can only be spent on certain projects, so we kind of set that aside. That's the unrestricted reserves down at the bottom. So it breaks down all the components of our reserves that we have in there, because obviously, if we have another COVID or we have another situation that's kind of puts us in a little bit of a bind for a period of time, we have some reserves to rely on. And then wanted to point out this one, we always have the meeting with John and Frank, and John had made a comment about the cash flow, and I'll go back here, that it's a little lower than what we had in budgeted for mainly in that June, July period. He noticed that piece. And that the biggest reason for that is right there versus our budget. We moved that RACP that we had originally in our budget in February to November. We did that after we did the budget, just to be conservative, because hopefully we'll get it before then. But we originally had it in our original budget, getting it in February. Hopefully we'll get it second quarter, right, Ryan? But at this point, it's budgeted in November. Okay, that's the biggest difference as far as, but it still works out to where we expected for the end of the year, but the ebbs and the flows during the year. And this is, again, our cash flow assumptions, just to kind of keep in mind the things that we're doing with some of our assumptions, so you can kind of understand what happens from month to month and what we're doing. And that red line kind of represents the 180 that I mentioned earlier, and us being above that line, what's there. The pure average numbers, we should have probably around July, August. Once we get it, it takes a little time from the previous year. Everybody has to file their reports, and then we'll update that for 2024 for the pure average. Any questions at this point? We had a good month. I promise to keep it short when we have a good month.
Could entertain a motion to accept the finance report.
I'll make that.
Motion by Paul.
All
second by
right.
Mike. Okay,
All right.
any discussion points?
All right.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, we don't have any other action items. Okay. Under new business, just wanted to let everybody know that Frank and I met with Tyler Brumley before the meeting today. Tyler is our audit manager, and he's been on the engagement now for many years. He's been here, I think, as long as I have, about 8 years or so. So everything we expect will go well. We're not expecting anything material. There's one issue that he raised that will result in an acceleration of recognition of expense. And I want to emphasize that it doesn't increase our expenses. What we have are for compensatable holidays. So for example, a Jewish person gets certain holidays off for faith reasons, Muslim, the same thing. We've been expensing those on an ongoing basis, according to Tyler. I'm looking at Todd just to make sure I'm getting this right. What new GASB standard now requires us to accrue for that expense as opposed to expense on an ongoing basis. So what that's going to do is accelerate the recognition of the expense, but not increase the overall expense at the end of the day. So not a big deal in my opinion.
If I
I want
might-
to make sure
if I
I
might-
had that right.
Got that a little backwards. It's actually the other way around. GASB 101, which we talked about last year, is the compensated actions. It's really talking about the adjustment to, we already accrue vacation time, but it's the percentages that go along with it.
Okay.
Workman's comp, payroll taxes, all those things you need to accrue as well. We weren't accruing that, so you have to add in those add-ons.
Yep.
We talked about it last year. They actually wanted it to be a beginning balance number. It's about 350,000. We're waiving that adjustment. I told them last year. It's in this year's expenses.
Yep.
So all of our numbers for this year include that adjustment. Every month we kind of said, hey, we're going to accrue that to get us to what we need. And then year to year it won't be that much, but getting it to, it's about 350,000. What we could do, which we said we weren't going to do, it's our choice, is put it back into 2023. We said no. Because if we do that, that would actually reduce the 2023 expenses, which we've already settled on. And then we wouldn't have any opportunity to go back and get those funds back. So it's in this year's number. It still ends up with the same number at the end of the year.
That's my point, is it doesn't increase the expense.
It doesn't change anything. It's just the timing of the recognition. A lot of this stuff is just timing. You remember last year was implementation of GASB 101, and it's like, all right, that's going to increase our cost by 300,000. We've talked about it a lot of times, but they want that to show 1-1. And unfortunately, the only way we could go back and do it at 1-1, and we would have to run it through 2023. And we said no, because we've already settled on that.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions? Again, it doesn't change anything. We end up at the exact same spot.
It's the same level of expense, it's the recognition, which is the point I
It's
wanted
just
to
the
make.
recognition, so thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, it's okay.
It's really one of those things where, as an authority, that it's our choice. We've had that. We had that discussion with them last year. Hey, they're telling us we're waiving it. We're making it this year in our number. So that's it. And again, we only show single year. We don't show comparative on our financials, but that beginning balance is actually a little bit lower than it should be, right? Or it should be higher than it should be. And then we fix it in this year. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that? Again, it's nothing, it's accounting stuff, but it doesn't change the books or anything. It's just kind
I
of
live in a regulated world, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, but again, it's good to bring that up because it's one that he's going to mention even when he comes back.
Exactly, that's why I wanted to mention it now.
And while I'm up here, I do want to, I know Tom changed that Sabette sent out the timing for next month. We do have John coming in to do our pension stuff. That's why I said 9 o'clock next month.
Okay.
So that's what's the changing of the time. We do that every time in April every year. So he'll be here to kind of walk through last year's and where we are in the pension and some of that stuff. Okay, so that, I just wanted to mention, I know Tom will probably mention it as well.
Okay, do we have any other new business?
It's your turn.
Good. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. You did? I couldn't hear you. Okay, we're good. Next meeting. Thank you, Dawn.
Welcome to the March 27th, 2025 Business Committee meeting. Can you please call the roll?
Dawn Gottschall.
Here.
Justin Grimshaw.
Here.
James Irwin.
Here.
Frank Fasciano.
Here.
Kevin Surface.
Here.
Jonathan Strauss.
Here.
Chris Worley. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Sylvette. Is there any public comment?
Not at this time.
I will call for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the February 24th, 2025 meeting.
This one I can.
Thank you, Frank. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Justin. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, motion approved. I will turn it over to Ryan to give us a update on our capital projects.
Good morning, everybody. So a few updates with the changing weather. Obviously means construction is underway for some of our projects, so we'll just go through some of those updates through here. So winter shutdown for the runway, really for the airfield, is ongoing until April 7th, so that'll be kicking off here in a few weeks. kind of go into some of the details. I think as we mentioned before, all of these colored areas are the work areas that we'll be hitting throughout the year. Package 5 for the runway, again, starting up April 7th. Really, it's installing the new LED runway edge lighting and doing some other fine grading. You can kind of see on the end of 2-4, get that package done, hopefully by the end of this year. Package 6, again, shut down till the 7th, coordinating timing to really do those fillet widenings on Alpha 7, which is at the end of runway 6. And that's a lot of coordinating timing with the cargo carriers, because that's their only in and out of the cargo apron. So working on timing of that as well. Taxiway Alpha, looking to start basically a week later, April 14th. They're going to be starting in front of Hangar 10 area, right around here. But again, that's happening after some of the other work that we're doing that I'll get to here in a minute. Cargo project, we're still having our monthly coordination calls with FHWA. They still have the draft grant agreement under review. We don't have a time frame of when we'll hear back, but we're still progressing on the airside design, which is the taxiway and the apron, and coordinating that with everything else. So just like before, more to come, but we're continuing to progress what we can before we get that grant agreement. Parking garage, again, continuing kind of behind the scenes with some of their bi-weekly meetings, working through the design, but really the big thing now is just some ongoing discussions about some of the amenities, what's included with the layout, how we're maximizing efficiency, and working through the cost estimates. So again, more to come as we continue the design and conceptual planning of that as well. Government building demo, really they started a couple weeks ago on the interior, March 17th. The bulk demolition, which is really the exterior, they'll start really in the next week or two, again, depending on how they're progressing on the inside. Week of April 14th, we're looking to install the new AOA fence, which is kind of that purple in the graphic. And a lot of that is to accommodate the hotel development that's coming in the next few weeks as well. So I know the hotel folks surveyed the lease boundary on the 19th of this month, and then they're looking to start sometime in April. They're coordinating with the Conservation District and the township for the kickoff meetings. So more to come on that as well. Again, as I mentioned, some of the interior demo, a lot of it was already down for them, but it was, cleaning up what they could in there, as you can see. So a lot to do before they actually start, the bulk demolition. So again, more to come on that as we go. Air handler unit 4, as we've talked about, phase 1, which is downstairs in the police station, is complete. Just really working through the punch list items. Phase 2A, which is the back hallway, began earlier this month, and then you noticed when you walked in last night, they basically closed off the Allegiant ticket counter area to start that demo while Allegiant's relocated to the east side of the terminal. We originally were going to have them work at night, and with the timing, it actually would have been more of an inconvenience for passengers in the work area and cleaning up every night. So this way they can actually get in and out of there in 6 weeks versus the 10 or 12 that we originally thought, if they would have to work around the schedule. So a lot of coordination internally with our folks. We definitely appreciate being able to do that as we go through. Again, phase 1 down at police station, remember, was obviously new HVAC, but new lighting, ceiling grid. Actually put in new flooring. Maintenance has come in and actually helped clean up with some of the painting and other areas. So again, that's ongoing. And then the next week or two, some of the new furniture is coming in that we had talked about before.
We have a holding cell, huh?
Yes,
Yep, actually have 2. Yep.
so be nice.
Nice and cozy.
Get out of hand.
For bad board members.
So this is the back hallway beyond Allegiant, which they had started, and then again more to come out front. So our comp pave project, comprehensive paving, we started back March 17th, the vehicle service road. As you may recall, as you mentioned before, we needed to get this done because it impacted runway 1331 before we start 624 construction here in a week or two. They're scheduled to be completed tomorrow in those areas, and then they'll next week move on to the Hangar 7 entrance, kind of the picture on the left there. But really, the reason for the closure is because some of these areas, they had to do a full depth rehabilitation based on the condition of the pavement and really what was there with a lot of the fuel trucks that are coming through there that were really degrading the pavement. So you can kind of see that was the reason for that closure. So that'd be good to get that done. Beta Technologies, this will probably drop off next month, but PPL completed their connection. Really just getting the information for the landside vehicle charging stations, and really for the tenants or users of Hangar 7 can use that. And then, you know, the station will be ready for whenever those aircraft may or may not, you know, come around. So that'll be good to get done. Queen City with the 1533 lighting, really just working through closeout documents, punch list items, addressing some lighting discrepancies in terms of the pilots that activate the lighting, so working through that, and then addressing some of the Conservation District comments when they came out. Obviously, with spring around the corner, we got to wait for things to grow before they can come in and close that permit out. But really just working through that final closeout piece. So we talked about before, the Queen City roof repairs. All of the roof areas 1 through 4 are completed. They actually finished the skylights this week, working on some of the gutter connections and other metal work. Again, working through punch list items and really staying on top of any roof leaks that come up based on, you know, just the timing and areas that are protected, not protected. So it's actually a good project down there. And just added some photos just so everyone's aware, you know, ripping off the old membrane, bringing it right down to the structural deck, and then building it up with some insulation and then the actual roof membranes to really protect what's there. And Ryan from our team went down there yesterday, and the old skylights, normal photo of it, was basically just like a corrugated, what's the word, but basically a corrugated plastic that you couldn't really see through, but it let light in. But now when you actually look in there, it's like, is that even plexiglass? Because you can actually see outside. So I think that'll be really good for the tenants and users down there as well.
Can you go back one slide for me, please?
Sure.
Do we use co-stars a lot?
When we can, for some contracts, yeah, we try and use it when it's a lot easier to get some of the components of the project done.
Yeah, I haven't seen it here yet. I see it out other places, but I haven't really seen it here.
Yeah, we actually use, so Moser actually does a really good job. They actually did our old departure roof and some of those repairs as well. So when we can, and you know, when we do use co-stars, there is some negotiation that's we do as part of it, which is helpful as we work through some of these. So no, that's a good point. Moving to the taxiway alpha feasibility study, we actually had a call on Monday with the FAA just to go through the report. They're recommending we shift the taxiway 40 feet, which really the alternative was, do we rehabilitate it in place or shift it to meet the latest FAA standards? So working through the report and the cost estimates, but basically if the FAA says we're requiring you to shift it, they have to find the money to make us shift it. So it's one of those things that we're working through. Obviously there's matches and it might extend the duration, but at the end of the day, we'll get a lot better pavement section than we have today. There's currently no runway or taxiway edge lighting in place. There'll be new taxiway edge lighting, new call fillets for some of the geometry. So at the end of the day, it'll be a really good product for the airport down there. And having that separation distance of 40 feet adds a little bit of you know, security safety element as well. So
Ryan, the FAA reimbursement, is that reimbursement or the funding and they put that up front?
So that's reimbursement.
It's not guaranteed.
Well, once we get the grant in hand, it's guaranteed. It's just,
Yeah, once we accept the grant agreement, then it's locked in.
I'm just more pessimistic.
I know.
I understand.
I like the pessimism.
It'll be fine.
How long does it take them to pay back?
quick. Typically a week or two.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that phase is pretty
I
good.
want to know who you know.
Well,
It's electronic draw.
yeah. So I actually have a monthly call with our FA project manager, and we're pretty on top of, hey, this is coming, be on the lookout for this. And he's pretty good at responding, which is helpful.
As long as he's still there.
Yeah. As long as he's still there.
And that is, to stay on that for a second, that's actually something we talked to Tyler about briefly as well, is we are reliant on grants. We're really, really good at getting grants and making sure we get the cash. He's not heard anything from any of their other airport clients in regard to any delays of grants or things of that nature. But that is something we gotta keep an eye on, because if that goes sideways, that hurts because of the reimbursement aspect. You're right.
Well, agreed. So, yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm moving to Braden Park. I'm really looking at the bid documents right now, anticipating advertising the project sometime in April, likely bring it back to the board in May. PennDOT's reviewing the documents now, but just kind of as a recap, it's really new runway edge lighting, conduit, taxiway lighting as well. That's PennDOT grant funded. So once we actually get the bids in hand and we know where the numbers fall based on the estimate, we can then submit for the actual grant paperwork, official document at that point. So looking at the update, no major changes. I did add project 6 and 7 that we had talked about, but there's a lot of TBDs because we're still working through, but just wanted to be consistent with the slides we were showing before on here. So again, working through some of the projects, again, package 4 and closeout, kind of reviewing that as well. And again, starting the construction season, a lot of those 5% will start moving up as we progress throughout the year. And then just a quick update to this, basically everything in green is in some form of progress and moving forward. Everything that's not shaded is to come, as we kind of showed with some of the timing there. And as we progress, potentially next month, as early as next month, we did last year is we did kind of like a CIP reconciliation, or if we call it an amendment, but throughout the year with kind of to Todd's point, ebbs and flows of timing. We're looking to keep the same budget approval amount the same, but then reallocate depending on the timing of projects and some potential cost estimates we got that we're looking through as well. So more to come on that, but just kind of as
Just on that point, Ryan, the major non-grant projects, that's just like a list that just is always there, because I can't remember a Hangar 7 door rehabilitation from a long time ago.
Yep.
That's just a list that, hey, if we have the funding, we can do that.
So that one's been on the list actually for a while. We started kind of a pre-design, working through design now. And that one probably in the next month or two will probably bring some more updates that we're working through.
But it's nothing that has to be addressed immediately because it's been on the list for a while.
And to that point, it's really, it's programmed.
Depends who you talk to, right?
Right.
I shouldn't say it that way, right?
Yeah, so the doors, it's a 1960 hangar. So the doors are sliders, and there's a lot of sections of those doors that we're opening manually at this point because of some challenges with controls, de-icing track for the doors of the winter. So we've got some issues, and the doors need some rehab after a number of years of moving around. So yeah.
But even to that point, Paul, as we go through with the cash flow every month with Todd's team, is again depending on the priority of it, but then as we work through our projects in the cash, we can kind of move some of those again since they're not grant funded as part of it. So that's something we're constantly looking at. No, it's a good question. I think that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't think there's any new business,
Actually,
is there? Okay.
yeah, I think Liz is on, but she sent that memo about the RCO, and I was wondering if she could go over that.
Where'd she go?
She was just there.
She was there.
Liz, are you there?
Yes, I'll jump in. So a number of weeks ago, there was a question at a meeting whether the LNAA could promulgate its own responsible contractor ordinance. And so my office looked into it. We did send that memo around, the whole contents of which are privileged, but we can discuss the conclusion. The ultimate determination was that the LNAA does have the power to create its own responsible contractor ordinance if it so chose. That there is a lot of discretion given to the agency to determine what is a responsible bidder and a responsible, respondent to a bid or proposal. So I just wanted to let you all know that that is something that can be done. If the committee would like to develop an ordinance, I can assist with that. And then that could be approved by the board once it's done.
Awesome, thank you, Liz. Is there anyone, do we create a subcommittee to create that, or how do we go about doing that? I'm not sure she can.
Yeah, it would be handled at the committee level, developing the ordinance.
I think from a procedural standpoint, should this go to the full board for discussion and approval as to whether or not we want to create an RCO, and then go from there in terms of the actual creation of it?
Yes.
Because what this memo does, it says we can if we so choose. To me, if we so choose, that should be a board action as opposed to a committee action to make the determination if we so chose.
We'll take
Put it up, let's put it up for a vote for the
Yeah.
board next meeting.
And then, can you start that, Liz? Do you have a sample, or what would you call it? A template?
Yes, we would start with, there is, the counties have them. Some other authorities throughout Pennsylvania do have them, so we wouldn't reinvent the wheel there. We'd start with one that's already been developed.
Start that would be great. All right.
If we could also, Tom, if you could put together a schedule, because my understanding, I want to make sure we've got concrete information on this, is that a lot of what we would cover in an RCO, we already put in our standard contracts. So I want to make sure that we have a full understanding of what's in our standard contracts in regard to what contractors qualify to bid, so that we know what we would be adding by way of an RCO. So it's important. We all want to make sure we've got qualified contractors, and we've all had issues with contractors that have done work for the airport authority in the past, and then a number of contractors, not just one or two. So the ability to make sure that we've got qualified contractors in place is important.
Is that standard language available to the board to look at?
That's what I want to make sure that it is, yeah.
I mean, we can all review that, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's what I want to do, so that everyone's got the knowledge base as to what's already in the contracts.
I'll just add that the Northampton RCO has already been challenged through the courts and held up, so.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt they're legal. Yeah, that's not the issue. I just want to make sure that we know what we would be adding is what's already done. Yeah. You know, RCOs they're enforceable, and I don't have any question about that.
Is there any need for executive session? I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Here.
I'm not on it. I just tried to do what Frank did.
Thanks, Jim. So moved.
Okay, we'll call the order of the executive committee. Would you please call the roll?
Glenn Weedman, Mike Stershik,
Here.
Frank Fasciano,
I'm here.
John Hayes,
Here.
Paul Anthony.
I'm here.
We've got a quorum.
Okay, Sylvette, thank you. Sylvette, do we have any public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay, the first action item is the approval of the meeting minutes for February 24th. I have a motion, Michael. Second, John. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the approval of our solicitors' invoices. Take a motion for approval for that. John, is there a second? Mike? Any questions on the invoices? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
John, nominating committee chair update.
Okay, quick update on that. We have candidates, nominees for all of the positions. So we're in good shape in that regard. If anyone else who has not already talked to me about it wants to serve in any of those roles, please let me know. We'll make sure we handle that. And we vote on this in April or May?
April.
Okay. So the full slate will come back in April for vote and hopefully approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any new business? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for executive. When Colin is ready. He's ready.
Okay. Thank you. This session was for informational purposes only, and during this session, no deliberations, decision-making, or voting occurred.
Thank you. We'll meet Tuesday, April 1st. Not gonna be fools, we're really meeting at noon. Other than that, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for